Turnbull, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. I'm looking forward to chatting with you. How are you?
Yeah, very well, thank you. And thank you very much for having me on.
You're very welcome, and thank you for joining me. And I'm looking forward to chatting. But a regular thing on this podcast when I speak to musicians is I don't like to speak about the latest thing first. I always like to go back a little bit and ask about when did you kind of get into music and everything. So it's going to be the same today. So when was it that you realised, Turnbull, that music was kind of the thing that you wanted to do?
Well, I always remember getting the bus to my grand's when I was 12 years old. And I had a Sony cassette player. And I used to steal all my sister's cassettes. And I nicked What's the Story Morning Glory. And back then, there weren't any smartphones or
Yeah.
anything like that. And I'd just pull out the little booklet and just read it word for word and everything, and just be, taken in by the music. And there was Blur and there was Oasis. She had a little bit of Green Day and stuff like that. And I was just like, this is great. So I got a guitar when I was about 12, but I couldn't play it. But I kept trying. And then a friend of mine, Mike, got in a school band. He must have been about 13. And then he got all the girls when he was playing and singing all the songs. So I'm like, I'm gonna have to learn this.
So yeah, I can kind of relate to that because my dad is he's 46 and he tells me now about like well in the 90s when there used to be these cassettes and like there was one album one side then one album another.
Mate, that's not good. He's only 6 years older than me.
But I'm guessing if we're going back, then you've mentioned Oasis because one of my questions was going to be who were you kind of influenced by and which band? So I'm guessing it was kind of the Brit pop like Oasis, Blur, and then dating a bit further back to like the bands they were inspired by like the Smiths and the Jam almost. I'm guessing then.
Uh, Not so much. I mean, obviously Britpop was a big thing, but also a lot of things from the Cult. I think Billy Duffy.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Taken a lot of influence off him, if that's how you say his name.
yeah.
And also, in the early thousands, I'd listened to a little bit of Blink-182 and stuff like that. Because I really like the simplicity of the sort of the poppy punk songs and,
Yeah,
and punk songs in general, really, because it kind of makes you think you've got a chance of doing something when you listen to the three chords and a couple of picking on strings and stuff like that. And it's just so dead simple, and yeah, it can sound so good. So that was quite an influence too.
yeah, because I know what you mean. 'Cause it's kind of there's not many riff changes. It's like really simple, but it makes such a powerful sound.
Yeah.
So yeah, kind of like you being a guitarist as well. I can see why you might like Billy Duffy because he's created obviously some great riffs. If you look back at the catalog of the Cult.
Because I'll never forget the first time I heard She Sells
Yeah,
Sanctuary.
it's an
And it's
amazing
just
song.
like, what is this?
Yeah,
It come on TV. I know it's probably MTV or something like that. And I was just like, what is this? This is incredible. The guitar, just it was
yeah.
just it, I guess it's kind of changed maybe my life in terms of playing instruments and stuff. I mean, I don't know what he's like as a person, but he's definitely helped me as a guitar player. And I went,
Yeah, and that is such an iconic song. I probably put it in my top 10 of all time. It's just I know what you mean. Like the first time you hear that, and then the guitar comes in, it's just so powerful.
yeah. And it's dead simple as well. It's
Yeah.
so simple, and it's really special actually.
So I've obviously we spoke a little bit about your influences there, but how what I know this might have been a bit further along the line, but how did Skylights develop from like how did you lads meet and come together?
Well, I was about 10 years old when I bumped into Rob and Johnny because the singer and bass player were brothers,
Oh,
and they used to always borrow my ball and Skaz. fancies himself as a bit of a footballer, but he used to always boot my balls in the tree. Because I used to live next to the park and they lived a bit further away. They'd always borrow my balls and lose my balls. So I've known them since I was, like 9 or 10 years old, those two. And Miles, I started playing in a band with when I was 16, so I've known him a long time.
So yeah, kind of been together all them years and kind of grew up on music together almost.
Not really. We just kind of chat. Well, we were just messing about a little bit, and I sort of got a new group of friends when I was about maybe 18, 19, and started playing in a band with my friend Mike and another friend of mine, Matty. And we did a little bit for like 4 years. And then I got to 24 and that band had split up. They ditched me for another bass player. So I was like, what am I going to do with myself? And Scouts, the singer, used to come and see me, and we used to sort of try and figure things to do. We'd go on nights out and things like that. And it was his brother, Johnny, that came round and says, do you want to start a band turn? And I was like, well, we can do. But I said, I'll have a go on guitar. But I'd never played guitar before because I always played bass and acoustic. So I should have said I'd not play electric guitar. So I started playing electric guitar and he started playing bass. And the first song we did was actually Darkness Falls. And the second song was Driving Me Away. So that was back in 2008, was that? And that's how it started. And then it was no good, just me and Johnny. And I've told the story a million times, but we needed a singer and we were desperate for a singer. And we knew that Rob, Johnny's brother, wasn't working. So we drove to his house, banging on his door. He's still in bed. I'm like, come on, come to band practice. And he's like, I'm not. You come in. He says, I'm not a singer. Why are you even here? I says, here's some beers. I'll pay for your practice. You come along, I'll get you a few pints in the pub as well. So he's like, I'll go then. And then he just came down. And I never told him, but I booked a gig in 2 weeks' time because I got my friend Tom, who was also used to knock about with us when we were kids, to just bash about on drums. And we had about 5 songs. Scal sort of learnt him a bit, and I'm like, right, we're playing on Saturday. Don't panic. And he's like, oh, no. I said, you can't cancel now because we've already advertised it. So we just went on and played it. And that was that, really.
That was probably the best thing to do because you kind of thrown him in at the deep end there, and he wouldn't with you booking it, he wouldn't have time to think, right, I'm not doing this, or even think about it to get straight in there.
I mean, how many people say they're going to do something, mess about for years, even sometimes, and I'm just not like that. If I want something, I want it now, and it's just like, let's just get it done, and it turned. I mean, the first 4 years was pretty tough because then we packed it in after that, but then we came back. But that first gig, I mean, it was just like, right, let's just get it done. We've got the songs, let's just play it.
Yeah, because you can't speak to loads of people and they say, "Oh, I wish I'd done that. I wish I'd done that," and they've never. So I think you're totally right there with saying you just booked it and then went out and did it.
Yeah.
And how's the path been recently leading up to the last couple of years? Because of course last year the debut album What You Are came out. So how was the path leading up to the release of the first album? Was it tough? Was it hard to was it a long journey to get that album out? How was it?
Extremely long.
Yeah.
I mean, when you think 2022 and we started in 2008, I'll let you work that one out. So, like, when we started playing together, I mean, we had, like I said, my friend was on the drums and he wasn't really a drummer. I couldn't play guitar. Johnny wasn't great on bass, and Scouse couldn't sing. So we took ages. We were playing for about 4 years, from 2008 to 2012, and we were messing about. After a couple of years, Tom decided not to drum anymore, and we got Miles in. That totally changed the band. You can get away with a bad guitar playing, get away with a bad bass player, but you just cannot get away with a bad drummer. If you've got a bad drummer, I'm not saying Tom was bad, but I'm just saying if you've got a drummer that's not powerful, you're going to sound dreadful. And that's the thing, that's the difference between an amateur band and like a professional sounding band a lot of the time, is how good the drummer is. And Miles just made it totally solid. Our first demos with Miles ended up on the actual album, Nothing Left to Say and Take Me Somewhere. And that was the start of it. So we actually recorded our first songs for the album back in 2010. And then in 2012, we recorded YRA. I made a load of CDs. I give them all out. Nobody seemed interested at all. So I was like, right, I can't be bothered with this anymore. So we just sacked it off and just quit completely.
For good.
Yeah, I sold all my gear. I didn't play guitar for about 6 years. And then my wife came home one day and she was like, I put your CD on in the car. I'd forgotten how good you were. I thought you were really good. I was like, you sure? She was like, yeah. And she was like, I think you should do another gig and we should get all our old friends together. Like, I really don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. That's in the past now. You know, it's not for me. Because you know what the game's like yourself. It's a hard slog. And if you're not getting any rewards in it, it's not worth it. But then Rob started calling me saying, I really want to do it again. So I was like, okay, we'll do one show. So I spoke to my mate Tim, who was a promoter in York, and I says, can we do this gig? We're going to do one show. He says, absolutely, sir. No problem at all. He booked us this venue. He gave us a time frame. And then I looked it up, and it was a 600 capacity venue. And I'm thinking to myself, how the heck are we going to sell 600 tickets? There's going to be my wife, my mum and dad, and that's it. There's going to be like 3 people. So panic station set in for me. I was like, oh, mate, we're going to have to do some serious promo here. So I got the YRA that we'd recorded in 2012. I got it remixed by my friend Johnny G, and then I just flooded it all over Twitter. I just went on Twitter and just anyone with music in the title, I just tweeted them.
Yeah.
And also the YRA is an anthem from Leeds United that they sing on the stand sometimes. So it was a bit of a tongue-in-cheek sort of steal from it. So I sent it to everyone with anything to do with Leeds United in the title. I also sent it to the social media manager at Leeds. And about a week later, like about maybe a month before the gig, I got a message from the Leeds United account, like blue tick job, saying, hi, I really like your song. Do you mind if we use it as our song of the season? So I was like, blimey, yeah, too right. So the next thing, it got put on all their social medias as like a backing track for all the goals and stuff. So I'm like, this is great. And then we started getting people like coming, and then the actual venue, believe it or not, got closed for some reason. I think there was a leak. And so the gig got moved to a place called the Crescent, which is only 300 capacity. And then we sold it out. So this one gig we came back for ended up being a sellout.
That's crazy, and I'm here thinking that's such a good journey, because obviously you said you quit for good. You sold all your equipment to just that one simple thing of your wife saying, I think you sounded really good then. Then all the other lads wanted to, and then I think you've hit the nail on the head with what I always think with things. You just reached out to everybody on Twitter, because I mean, I remember it's even though I'm in the radio or podcasting industry. I remember when I first started in lockdown, it'd sort of be a laugh with a few mates and that, talk about some nonsense. But I started reaching out to people like, I remember like Razor Ruddock on Twitter. I just said, can you give me a follow? I'd like to DM you about a potential podcast, and he followed me, and then we did it from there. And then he introduced me to people like Shima and Redknapp, and it's just crazy to think how it's so simple to do something which can have such a big effect.
You're totally right, and you've done exactly the right thing, because like for years and years I probably wouldn't do it. But now I'm just thinking this is last chance saloon for us. Yeah. So just why not? You're going to message 1,000 people. You might get one reply. And I remember when I was tweeting the song out, I remember it well. People were giving me grief, saying it was crap. This one guy was like, this is rubbish. This other band's better. And then 3, 4 years, however long it was, afterwards, they ended up opening up for us on one of the shows. So I dug out this old tweet and says, you should come to this show. Your mates are opening up for us. You know what I mean? It's just little things like that. It's a funny old world, social media. It can be so great though, and I've got no complaints at all.
Yeah, it certainly does do its good things, but yeah, it's a strange world. But talking of that sellout gig, how did things develop after that? Once you'd kind of built a fan base and people were familiar
Yeah.
with you, with who you were and your music and everything.
It honestly, thinking back, it just makes me smile so much because it like you get engrossed in the moment sometimes, and at the minute I've got loads of things on my mind about waiting for certain emails, waiting for certain things. But talking to you now just makes me chuckle. So we did that gig at the Crescent. It was like 1,000,000 degrees. We played dreadful. I mean, we hadn't played for like however long, 8 years or so. We played terrible, but it went really well. And we had a cracking night. I then got a call from the same promoter that said, "How would you fancy opening up for Tom Hingley in the Carpets?"
Oh
So
yeah.
basically, the Spiral Carpet singer. So we sold a load of tickets and we opened up for them. And we went into the dressing room afterwards, and the band were there, the Carpets. And the guy says to me, he says, "You know what, pal? Like, you're probably the best support band we've ever had." I'm like, "Are you just winding me up here, mate?" And he says, "No, you honestly, I loved what you did. I thought it was fantastic." And I was like, "Oh, cheers." So that was nice. And then in the next couple of days, I got a message from a fella called Oddie who said, "I really want to manage you guys. I'm writing to me music. I won't mind giving it a go." So I was like, "Oh, yeah, why not? We've got nothing to lose. We've just done a couple of shows." And he booked us the Broodnell Social Club
Oh,
on a
in Leeds,
Thursday.
yeah.
Yeah. It was a Thursday night. It was middle of winter, and so we're like, "Oh yeah, this is going to be great." Because the last time we played in Leeds, we played a place called the Northern Monkey. I don't even know if it's there anymore. And there was about 3 people there. So anyway, we got all excited. It was a free gig. All the tickets, I say tickets, all the free tickets sold out. So basically, you booked a free ticket. And then when it got to the Thursday, hardly anyone showed up, and the place was dead. Uh, but we had an all right night. It was okay, and the people there, lovely to see them. Then we went to a nightclub after, and we were deciding on the way home. We're like, "What are we gonna do? Is this? Are we gonna carry on doing this?" Because it was good. It was really great to play at the Brood now, but it was a very quiet night. Are we here to do this? Do we have time for this?
Mm.
So I said, "Listen, we'll do one more gig. I'm gonna make sure it's on a weekend, and we'll see how we get on." So like, okay, so we decided one more show. If it's another quiet affair, we're not going to bother anymore. And Oddie, he's top mate of mine. He had a bit of family trouble. Well, someone got poorly, so he didn't have time to manage us anymore. So I was like, "I'll just do it myself." So I started emailing promoters in Leeds, and none of them replied to me. It was like, what's going on? Nobody wanted to book us at all. So I rang the Belgrave Music Hall. Are you familiar with that place?
I haven't heard of that. I've heard of the
Yeah,
Brooding Mill because it's
yeah.
like, that gets a lot of gigs, but I haven't heard of that place.
Yeah.
No.
So I called the Belgrave Music Hall and I said, "Listen, can I put our own show?" And he says, "Yeah, it costs 400 quid to hire the room. We'll give you a sound guy and a couple of door staff." So I was like, "Okay, 400 quid." So I send him 400 quid of my own money. And I'm like, "Right, lads, let's see how we get on." So I got a fella called Tom Miller who was going to do an acoustic show. I got a band called Macroscope and I got a band called Pull Sharks. Anyway, this Tom Miller turned out to be a very popular young man. And I sort of sent the gig everywhere. Next thing we know, we sold it out. This 400 capacity venue in Leeds, we sold it out. After a few months before, having about, I don't know, maybe 70 people at the Broodnell. And the night it was just nuts. It was just the total turning point of the band. And it was a fantastic night. Everyone had a mint time, and we had such a young audience there as well. And every single person there, well, not every single one, obviously, but the majority of the people there have followed us ever since that day. Like the youth and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And so we played that gig, which sold out. So now on our CV, we had a sold out show in Leeds. So I then email the promoters again, and somehow they find the reply button. Now they know we sell tickets. So then,
But yeah, typical now.
so then we get a gig at the Wardrobe,
Oh yeah,
uh,
heard of that
which
one.
is
Yeah.
she's like 450 cap, and we sell it out. And I got chatting to a fella called Josh Wharton, who's a boxer, he was
Yeah,
world
yeah.
champ at the time. And he got back to me saying he really loved. So he came down and got loads of photos with us and loads of photos with the crowd. And all of a sudden, like the buzz just started building from there. Then I got the phone call from Fenners, would you like to come on
Yeah.
Soccer AM
Soccer AM,
and
yeah.
play live? We're like, yeah, absolutely. So we went to Soccer AM. We then got a gig at the Leeds University, which is 1,000 cap. So basically, the booked us on at the Broodnell again, and we sold it out in half an hour. And so I rang the promoter, I'm like, give me a university. I said, Toby, I've said from the start, all I want to do is play university. So we really need this university now. And he says, don't you want another night at the Broodnell? I'm like,
No,
no,
yeah,
I want the university because for me, right, especially at that time, the next gig could be our last. So, like I've always said, if you play in a university, you're on the next step up of the run. Do you know what I mean? Like
yeah,
1,000 cap venue.
yeah,
It like me and you could decide we're doing a gig, and we could turn up at a gig as long as we had 20 mates with us and play anywhere.
yeah.
Whereas you can't do that at like universities and stuff like that. So it took a lot of negotiating, but we managed to get the university, and it sold out in 9 days.
Wow.
And then all of a sudden, COVID hits, and
Oh
it
no.
just and then it just gets shut down.
Oh, what a nightmare. But I bet was it kind of did obviously the COVID thing was really bad, but did it kind of make you think, well, why don't we use this time to go and make an album?
Yeah, it didn't really affect us, to be honest. Like we'd done Soccer AM and done 3 really good shows just before it, and we actually wrote. Well, we finished off and recorded Darkness Falls during lockdown, which has turned out to be one of our biggest songs. We still played the uni gig because it got to the end of
Yeah.
COVID, and we played that show, and then can't remember the time frame after that. Really, we started playing Aberdeen a lot, and then we just started doing gigs all over the place and put the album out. And so that's kind of the story of how it went.
I'm honestly, that's one of your journey's probably one of the best I've heard on this podcast. Just the way you felt like giving up so many times and so many things just fell in your place. I think it's brilliant.
Yeah, and the beauty with this band is like the lads in it. They're just such good lads. There's
Yeah,
no egos there. We never ever argue. Well, I say that the two brothers do, but they're brothers, so they're meant to argue.
yeah,
But like we never argue or fall out, and there's never really any disagreements. If there is a disagreement, we just go to the drummer and he makes the decision because he's
yeah.
just a very quiet guy that's always thinking, and he just makes the right decision every time.
I think in a band it's natural to have a few disagreements on certain things, but as long as you've got a band most of the time with your friends, I imagine that feels really good.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
we never ever fall out. Never. I don't remember. Well, actually, we did once. I really wanted to do this gig because they were trying to get us on. Well, our manager at the time was trying to get us on at Ellen Road with the Kaiser
oh
Chiefs
yeah,
many, many moons ago. And I really wanted to play on the Friday, and our bass player couldn't make it because he was out with his mates. So I was going to get someone in to just uh, do it for the night, and he was not impressed. But
Wow. Did you end up playing that one?
no,
Oh,
no, no. That
I'm
was a long, like that was long before we were doing well in Leeds. You know what I mean? We
yeah.
were still really unknown.
I bet that one was a bit sore. Ellen Road would be the dream, I'd imagine.
Well, do you know what? Like when we started playing again, like Scars, the singer, says to me, all I want to do is sell out a venue in Leeds. I don't care how small it is. And I says to him, Scars, that's not going to happen. Let's just concentrate on doing this show in York.
Yeah,
And that's was our expectation. So when I realised we were doing okay, the next step was to play university. I'd have opened up for someone. It's like the Blue Tones were playing lead stylus, and I was like,
I've heard of yeah.
please just give me a gig at a uni. I'll do anything for a gig at a uni. And they were like, no, they don't want you. So then more fool then because we sold it out like less than a year later in 9 days. So it all turned out so well.
And I know when you were speaking about some of the places there, you mentioned Aberdeen, and that's one thing I wanted to ask because it seems like there's a die-hard bunch of Skylights fans in Aberdeen. Now, how did that come about? Was it just playing there and then getting familiar with the people from Aberdeen?
Not really. We played Soccer AM, and a fella called Jim messaged me saying he really liked it, and it turned out he was head of recruitment at Aberdeen. I
Oh,
think it was
really?
for the youth team. So he actually worked for the club. So I was like, oh. So I had a little chat with Jim. I said, oh, thank you very much. He said, you'll have to come up to Aberdeen sometime. And then we started getting follows from like legends of the city. There's a guy called Neil Simpson who won the European Cup Winners' Cup in '83 with Aberdeen, who started like messaging us and sharing our posts and stuff like that. And the more high profile people, like a guy called Ali Beg, who was in like a famous boy band in the '90s. I think it was Bad Boys Inc. or something like that. He started like pushing us in Aberdeen. And then we met some of the locals when we played there. And we just started selling loads of tickets. And it was just mad how it kind of snowballed because of Jim telling everyone and
Yeah,
spreading the word.
yeah.
And now, honestly, I mean, I'm sure you've seen it before, but Scottish crowds are just
Oh, yeah.
incredible. And so we were writing a song and we were going to fit in the stand free wherever you may be because that's an Aberdeen chant.
Yeah.
Because we've had such amazing support, we thought, oh, we'll slip that in the chorus.
You may
Just
like that, yeah.
yeah, just as a bit of a thanks really for the support they've given us, and that went down really, really well. I think it got like an iTunes #2 or something like that, and Aberdeen come out to it now on match days.
Oh,
So
really? Oh, wow.
yeah, it's been incredible, really, and now we're playing the Beach Ballroom, which is like 1,000 capacity, and it's nearly sold out. So that's it's honestly, when you think about things like that, it just blows your mind, really.
Yeah, again, it's just crazy how they can happen. And obviously, speaking of Aberdeen and gigs, you do hit the road again soon. Wrote the dates down just so I can remember the right ones. So there's Sheffield, obviously my local Middlesbrough,
Yeah.
Leeds, Aberdeen, and Manchester. So would you like to say about what bands can expect attending them gigs? I mean, the Middlesbrough tickets, I've got mine, but I was mesmerised by the £8 price. I mean, it's an
I
absolute
know,
bargain to see a band these days.
right? I just want to know where are the people in Middlesbrough buy tickets? You know, we sell tickets everywhere, but not Middlesbrough. I don't know what's going on. It's so hard to sell.
Well, for some reason, it's really weird. Obviously, you know Shed Seven well.
Yeah,
They're doing a gig at the town hall. They haven't sold out. It's very very strange because where we are, it's hard for artists to sell out for some reason. I don't get
it's
it. I think
crazy.
maybe
And
it's
Shed
just.
7 have just done 6,000 in
I
Leeds.
know. Maybe it's just a town that's not blessed with music lovers.
That must be it.
That
I've
must
got an
be.
old pal of mine from work who I'm dragging down, but that's the only person I know. So there you go. I mean, we're gonna have a great night. I can't wait actually because I really like the Empire. I've
It's
actually
good.
played there twice before. Do you remember the band? Oh, you won't actually, but there was a band called The Delays, and we played with them in the early thousands in one of my first bands. And God rest his soul, the singer's actually died now. He died of cancer last year. But that was a fantastic place. I loved the venue, and I always says to
Yeah.
the lads when we started again, I said I'd love to take you boys to the Empire because it's such a
Yeah.
great place. So I'm chuffed a bit. So I hope the promoters don't say right, we're not doing it because we haven't sold any
Oh,
tickets.
not another one like the uni where it got cancelled. But no, it is a great venue, the Empire, and this is still tickets available now. So go and get them. It's a bargain, £8.
Yeah, yeah, go get him, go get him.
So obviously, along with this tour, earlier this year you released the single Rebellion, and
Oh yeah,
is that taken from something of what's to come for Skylights? Maybe album 2, a new EP. Was Rebellion taken in mind of anything coming like after that? Was that the start of a new kind of chapter for Skylights?
yeah, I guess so. I guess it is. And the next song we've got, I really, really love it. It's a little bit more anthemic. So I really can't wait to get it out. And that's the thing, just desperate to get everything out, but things sort of work a little bit differently, especially with vinyl. It takes forever to get vinyl in. And I don't know. Do we need vinyl? I guess it's nice to have a product, and it's nice to have something to remember. And at the end of the day, there's no point rushing stuff. So the song's all finished, and we've ordered the vinyl from some foreign land. I think it was Malaysia or something like that. So we're waiting for that vinyl to come, and when the vinyl comes, we can get the single out. We're going to film the video on Friday, actually, a week on Friday. So get it all sorted, and I'm really looking forward to this song. I'm not sure, sort of, if it's what people will expect, but I'm really looking forward to it.
Can fans expect to maybe hear that song on the tour at any gigs, or is it kind of going to be kept back in the locker for when the time's right?
Oh yeah, we play it live now. We play it live.
Oh, so it's already out there.
Yeah, we've played it live a few times. No one, I ain't seen any videos of it actually. To be honest, I don't like videos at gigs. I really don't. It never, you don't spend like thousands and thousands of pounds on amplifiers and speakers and all that to have it played through a 20p, speaker on a phone. Do you know what I mean?
To get video, just want to see people moshing.
Yeah.
But is there anything else you want to say about the upcoming gigs and where people can go and purchase tickets to see you on the road?
No, not really. I think you've mentioned everything. Obviously, just want to thank everybody because it's been a funny old story because we came in with absolutely no expectations whatsoever.
Which we've obviously heard in this podcast, yeah.
So to have played, I mean, we played Leeds Arena, played Peace Hall, played Millennium Square, and it's not down to the music as such because we've always had the music. It's down to the people supporting us, and that's people say, "Oh, you're going about all the time," but that's facts. You could be the best band in the world, but if no one comes to shows or listens to your music, then you're not going to get anywhere.
And I think Skylights are brilliant in the way they do show the appreciation to your fans because, like you say, without the fans, then the music doesn't mean anything if nobody's watching the shows. So I think you're totally right.
Yeah, and every single person that supported us, because it's really weird, right? You've got like friends you've had from kids that don't interest and don't support you, and you've got total strangers that pretty much die for you.
Yeah.
It's mental. It's just mad,
Yeah, it's a very, very strange situation when it comes to things like that. What Turnbull, it's been a great chat, and like I said earlier, I think your journey's been fantastic. So I'd like to thank you for coming on the podcast and sharing that today. And I'll see you at the Empire on the 29th of September.
Brilliant, yeah, looking forward to it. We'll have a couple of beers, not too many though, because it leads the next day.
Which pub?
You tell me, mate. I don't know. You tell me. We'll go somewhere.
Right.
Local.
I keep that in mind and drop you a message.
Top man. Thank you very much. Thanks for your time.